Are we Honourable Loss FC? We're going to find out. Please welcome Admin 3.
Knocks it down to the front. He gets it back. Goldie. Some poetry in slow motion from Goldie to Lucky. Don't you want to be him? He's got 9.
Welcome back to Further North, everybody. Wow, I'm on the come down from that game last night, and there's no man that I could think of to help me relax than Admin 3 from North Melbourne, closer to a flag. You are everything that keeps me calm, mate. The level head I need at this time. Please be that for me, because I'm I was unhinged.
Yeah, look, it's a really weird one, right? There's a lot I liked and a lot I didn't like about that game. Yeah. I think, again, a real almost game. And I think, before we get into things, I genuinely think this was, from a psychological point of view, this will be the one that got away. I think in the context of everything that's happened this week. So first off, you've got Paul Curtis suspension. You've got Kane Corns having a dig at Harry Sheezel, us banning him. It's Essendon. It's prime time. There was so much that a win could have done, especially a thrilling win under Thursday night lights. Again, I'm actually not as much, I am partly frustrated with the performance, but at the same time, I'm actually more frustrated because of what this could have represented for the club. And I've never gone into sort of, I'm always pretty hard stats and even into the psychology of the players. But I think in terms of symbolism and I think in terms of what it meant, I tend to stray away from that. I think this could have been a very big thing. And in my opinion, it's like, that James Hird goal that he kicked way back when in 2000 or something like that. And they had that really 2005, that really bad horror run they had with the AFL. Yep. That could have been us. I actually think that could have been our game.
And Finbar was the man to potentially deliver that for you, mate. What a chaotic time. But look, we'll get into it. We'll start from the start though, and we'll work our way up to that, because there's a lot to unpack. And I don't disagree with what you're saying, where it did feel like a night where that was the stage where we could have sent. Look, we're not really a successful enough club at the moment to send a message per se, but it could have been a little bit of this is the time everyone was watching us. A lot of people through the barbershop obviously watched the game, and it could have been a time to stand up and deliver. But unfortunately, we go down by 3 points to the Bombers, 65-62, a very low scoring affair. Yeah. 9 goals each, decided on behinds, which is a bit gross. But what did you think of the sort of the lead up to it and the changes made? Because there was interesting selections on the table. Tucker, Curtis, and Wardlaw out. Obviously, Curtis was always going to go out. Yeah. That's a slippery slope to go down. Wardlaw sort of got a corky from last game and didn't really recover in time. But Darcy Tucker, which is the one I feel like we've been calling for a long time. Finbar, Scott, and Will Phillips in. What did you think of the changes when they were announced?
I think that they were long overdue. I think, having Phillips in, I've been begging to have more Will Phil in. And I know Clarko always subs him out because he's citing fitness and everything. Well, give him match fitness, you're only, your preseason and your training fitness is only going to go so much. Playing 4 quarters of footy is a different beast, and you can only get better at it by doing it. And if that's the only aspect of his game that needs to improve, I see the solution. It's right in front of us. Tucker, absolutely, really, really agreed with that. I did think our backline was just in need of a desperate recalibration, if anything. I think it was just in need of, just getting everything out. I think Wardlaw was a responsible thing, especially now in the context of Jackson Archer having his hamstring done. I think that was a very important thing because we don't want to have him injured, then Jacko injured, and those are 2 of our harder players, those real contested style players that really we could have missed quite dearly. Having neither of them, I'd rather one, obviously, than none. So, yeah, I think that was smart. It was maybe not the decision I would have gone with initially, but having looked back at it, Clarko's maybe played a bit of 4D chess there, and I think I'm really happy with that.
Yeah. Finbar, were you excited to see the Moose debut?
I loved it. I really think he adds some good height. And I thought he was going to be a little bit like Bambi on ice, but he was sort of clunking marks. He kind of reminds me of Ben Brown without the run-up. in a way.
And the hair. Yeah.
And he's put all the hair into the mow.
Well, that's true.
He kind of clunks marks and he clunks like grabs sort of when you wouldn't expect it. It's the same as Ben Brown. He wasn't like a Drew Petrie style operator that, was one-on-one and battled for the footy. He will just kind of, the footy will just land in his hands and he'll be always like there to grab it. His first goal, that was fantastic. It was really good to see. I hope he gets more game time. I think he's earned it.
He's absolutely earned his spot for next game. I mean, I'd be shocked. I think, maybe, and we'll talk about this when we talk about the forwards a little bit more, but Darling probably needs a spell just for a little bit, I would say.
Yeah, I think.
Interesting to see with like the 3 tall forwards up there. So look, Finbar, I really liked, I was definitely calling for Teakle to start. Yeah. I'm not going to back away from the things that I sort of said there. But I was really excited when I heard him, get announced. He's been an emergency for a reason, I guess. And I was really hoping it wasn't going to end in like a Suv first game where it was 1 touch, 0 touch, a Tyler Sellers moment.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm really happy for Finbar. He's really good at clunking that footy, and I think I'm glad to see it translate from VFL to AFL level because it is a massive step up. So that was great. The last one I'll ask you about before we get into the first quarter, did you think Bailey Scott was a good inclusion? Because personally for me, I don't think he earned his spot back in that side at all. I mean, the VFL didn't play, which is another thing in itself, but calling him back up, maybe not where I would have gone there.
Maybe premature. I think, I would have thought maybe it would take something more drastic, like something a little bit more disastrous to have him in the squad. Again, I've always described him as sort of a Toyota Corolla type operator, just, gets, he's typically quite reliable, but I think maybe a little bit premature, and I think we maybe jumped the gun on that one.
I mean, we'll talk about him when we go to the midfielders anyway, maybe not his best showing out. So anyway, look, game kicks off, classic North Melbourne first quarter, and they come out and they look like trash, to be honest. It was one of the grossest games up until halftime that I've really ever seen, which is it wasn't good at all. It's sort of they kicked the first 3 from memory, and I was sitting there going, yeah, this is not looking good already. And that was my nerve before the game, was going, are we going to come out and do something different in the first quarter? And we absolutely did not. Zerha got us back on track from a free kick, which was lucky. Yeah. And then the big moment where Finbar, he got the run on it too. Like, I don't remember who kicked it into the 50, but delivered sort of into that forward pocket area. You could see him running from the back of the pack. He got a clean run, and he does just jump above everybody, took the mark, went back, kicked the snap, which was fantastic. Let's talk about his goal just to lead this off before we finish the rest of this quarter. But how are you feeling when he took that mark and went back and slotted the goal?
Again, it was very needed. Obviously being at the time 2 kicks down. I think, again, like you said, you could absolutely see his run from a mile away. Granted, some better defending sides won't let him have that sort of space to run, but that is something we've been missing so much of. Players that know how to time their run, because that's something that I legitimately think is a weakness of Larky's game.
Yep.
Darling is a contested type player. Those runs are never going to be something that he would do. Whereas Larky's not, he's sort of an in-between. And I think he can kind of, clunk those pack marks. But I think the biggest weakness of his game, in my opinion, is finding leads and timing his run. I've seen so many times this season, especially in the Carlton game, where he just overshot his run so much, and you'd see him leaning back and he's sitting under the flight of the footy
too. Yeah,
it's something that I've seen time and time again. He cannot time his run as good as maybe what he has previously, and I think having a player that has maybe shown that promise at the AFL level, I think it's a really good thing. So, I think it was really pleasing to see. I don't think I've seen someone do it that right for a little while. So, really, really refreshing and, again, exciting. Of course, next 3 goals were not what we were after. But, in that moment, I could sort of see what we were trying to maybe piece together a little bit.
For sure. So, then the Bombers, especially late, I mean, red time goals for us. Are always a thing, and by the end of the quarter, it was 37-15, and I wasn't getting my hopes up. You had Finbar right at the end of the quarter, and Zane Dersma both have a shot, so we had 2 shots within the last couple of minutes. Finbar's run up. I don't know if you could see this in the stadium or not, but for me, who I couldn't end up getting to the game unfortunately, but watching his run up on the TV, it was side to side. It was like a zigzag. It was like a slalom. And that made me go, the question, like the marking, fantastic. And I really liked where he was leading or the way he presented the footy. He took a couple of good marks down the ground as well. But, and this is, Finbar gets a tick for this game, by the way. This is not me criticizing him at all. But the run up was maybe worse than I believed it could have been with his kicking woes. And if he can just run straight at the goal and learn to kick that thing straight, we could potentially have a good player here. I mean, look, it's early, but that was also another opportunity to drag the game back. And then big game Zane, which would be later in the game, unfortunately missed a very, very gettable shot right in front of goal on the siren, which would have, put us only a couple of goals behind. And I reckon that would have sparked us into quarter time. We couldn't do it. And at that point, it just felt so flat. But we sort of turned it up a little bit in the second. And the first half of football for us wasn't good at all. I mean, one of the things we'll point out is LDU in that first half. I think 2 in the first quarter and maybe 1 in the second. His handballing for the first half, and this was the most Jekyll and Hyde LDU game ever, where the first half, everything he handballed turned into a turnover, which led to three turnovers from 3 handballs, which led to 3 Bombers goals. So it was really, really flat. We did improve in the second quarter, though. The quarter ending like 22-47. We improved and stopped their flow. They only scored 10 points. To be fair, we only scored 1 goal. What an absolutely gross quarter of football. If you're a neutral watching that, I apologize on behalf of all North Melbourne fans.
Oh yeah, that was. I actually was talking about this with some of the other admins and. I've been talking about this just generally. I think that LDU takes 1 second too long to do everything.
Yes.
There's so many times where he has a really good run and where maybe good players and good users of the footy, let's say like a Dacos, for example, he'll know exactly when to get rid of the footy. LDU takes 2 steps too many. And he even gets run. The one that, again, always stands out to me is... kind of when I remember when Colby kicked that goal against the D's, right? And LDU almost got ran down. And I just was thinking at the back of my head, I'm like, fuck, this guy makes me nervous. He's good, but geez, he does this to me. He takes too long. He needs to, he really sort of needs to assess his options a little bit quicker, I think, and really, still
he can
have
do
the
it too. That's the thing
has.
that's frustrating.
Yeah, that is the thing that is the most frustrating thing for me. He just takes too long.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And, I guess his first half definitely coincides with maybe our midfield performances. And Marnie Cohen, last podcast, was talking about Lee Adams, who I think, we should start putting a big spotlight on personally, because the talent in that midfield with the efficiency that we can win the ball out of there is too far apart. And, blaming Clarko for everything I don't think is the right way to do it. And he needs to lead this midfield group.
Yeah.
And even defensively, mate, like the Bombers in that first half just absolutely cut us apart through the corridor. And there was I'm not going to go over this every single week, but there's always a guy in the overlap. They had more numbers around the ball all the time. The amount of outnumbering the Bombers did to us at the contest was outrageous in that first half. So we were blazing away out of stoppage. And another thing I've harped on about for years, to be honest, is I don't care how good our clearance numbers are. You can just watch the game and we don't get good clearances.
Yeah.
Because a clearance is either a link chain handball to get a bit of space and run out of the center, or it's a hack forward by LDU or by Jerry or by Powell or someone like that to absolutely nothing. If the clearance gets intercepted, it's still a clearance. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, and that was on its worst display in that first half. So, look, a very, very gross first half of football, and any neutrals, once again, I do apologize. At halftime, how were you feeling like this was going to go?
Halftime, again, the second quarter, I'm kind of like, it was a bit of a nothing quarter, if I'm being perfectly honest. What I would say is I sort of expected more of the same, to be honest. It was a pretty ugly hit out. I couldn't see Essendon kicking away. I also couldn't see us getting back into the game. I thought maybe anywhere between 20 to 30 points probably seemed about right. That's where I got surprised. That's where I really sort of was just like, oh, wow, okay, this is impressive. So I think that really came as a surprise to me. That came as something that I was just like, oh, shit, didn't expect that. I was really just really hoping for something a little bit more clean. I think it came in spurts and it came in bursts. But yeah, definitely something that I didn't expect after halftime. I was hoping for it. We kind of got it because it was like 4 of the slowest goals I think I've seen us kick.
We only kick slow goals, mate, except if Colby's kicking them, to be fair.
Yeah, and I think that's also maybe something to take out of this as well. Again, we've struggled to stop teams from conceding. Yes, Essendon wasn't very accurate. Yes, they weren't as composed. Still got 65 points. Like, at the end of the day, we've let 140 points go through, 150 with Carlton.
That is true.
So I think whatever we've done to stop teams from scoring in that regard, I'm happy with. But yeah, I think the third quarter was kind of showing that we are our own best and worst enemies in terms of just how much of the footy we need to score.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with that. I mean, look, the one of the moments that actually stood out to me in the first half before we go to the second is Simpkin, I think it was Simpkin. Simpkin got a clearance in the middle of the ground and went to blaze away, stopped, took a second, stepped through 2 players, and we got a clean clearance, which led to a good disposal. And I think Constanti marked that and got a shot 40 metres out. Now, he just missed the goal, but that's not the point. That was the first time in the game, and I watch this every single week. That was the first clearance we got that wasn't just blazing away and kicking it blindly into the 50. And it ended up in a shot at goal. And the fact that we don't try that more, we don't even attempt. There's times LDU has way more time than he thinks and he just bombs that long. Powell's the same. Simpkins the same. All these guys do it. It must be directive. It has to be directive from Clarko or Lee Adams or somebody to just get that ball and get it forward, make the ball hit the ground, and then we'll try and lock it in there and do something. Because the amount of time and space I think we can create, which we don't bother trying to create, is the biggest reason why I think we can't put scores on the board. So, look, we'll go to the second half. It was a much, much better performance. We came out and we kicked how many? 1, 2, 3, 4 goals in a row. And all of a sudden we're completely back in the game. McKercher's goal was fantastic, a fantastic running effort by McKercher, which, you know, there's been a lot of criticism on McKercher. I've always said he should stay in the side, and those moments are exactly why, where there's not a single other player on the team that can run like he does. He bounced away from the players that were chasing him, which is finally we got a clean disposal out of a contest, something like that. He bounces away. There was not a second where I thought those 3 players around him would catch him, and I knew he would finish off that goal as well. So I loved that from him, and we just started, it was pressure, and we started using the ball cleaner. Larky got a couple, Simpkin got one before they didn't really answer until the second half of the third quarter. So what do you think the biggest difference was in that quarter? Was it just the pressure? It was a cleaner ball movement? What did we do to get ourselves back in the game, in your opinion?
I think it was cleaner ball movement. I mean, you see it from the goals that we kicked, and even like to go sort of jump the gun and Dersman's goal in the last quarter. Just the ability to, and even like Zerha, for example, he's absolutely unreal dribble kick. Dunstall would be fuming at that, but I think the thing that I noticed was just so many of our goals coming from open play. Something that, you know, is a really welcome sight. It was so smooth, composed. You look at Dersma, like he's running cool as a cucumber, absolutely, just really calm, having a shot on goal. Even Colby, yeah, he's moving quick, but geez, he was like absolutely, you know, just humming, and he was calm, and he looked like he knew what he was going to do. And I think that's the thing that really frustrates me, is either we take too long, we were taking just the right amount of time, we weren't rushing our decisions as well, to move the footy around. So, yeah, that was a really welcome sight, one that I haven't seen for a little while, because, yeah, it's just so frustrating that we can't seem to put that together. But just the composure, the ability to sort of stay calm across, you know, a third quarter, I think was really good. Take that into 4 quarters, that's going to be fantastic. But again, yeah, it wasn't debate.
Yeah, and I guess this is a debate, right? Is the 4-quarter performance far away? Sometimes I think yes, sometimes I think no. I really don't know. And that's the thing I think North Melbourne needs to prove to us as fans is, can they do it for that amount of time? So, yeah, you know, the going to the fourth quarter, I mean, Zerha's dribble goal at the end of the third was fantastic. Just an amazing bit of King of Marvel sort of stuff. It hasn't been that for a while, Cam Zerha, but that was electric and one of the moments of the game for me. And then the last quarter, geez, there wasn't much to talk about with it, except the contest was fierce. Like, there was such a lack of scoring. I mean, Kako kicks a goal, and then there was nothing until Zane Dersma kicks that goal on the run. The composure on that was fantastic. And geez, I know we didn't win the game in the end, but that is such a big moment. And for a young player to go back and slot that, we were playing this guy sort of up on the wing a lot. I'd really want him closer to goal, because we know that he can do magical things when it comes to being in front of goal. Other than that, there was really no more scoring for the quarter. The final siren goes. A little bit of controversy later in the quarter with, I think, Constantian getting a free kick, and then the little birdie in the umpire's ears says that's not a free kick, and then they didn't give it to Essendon. They balled it up instead, which I'm still very confused about. Hopefully some people talk about that through the week on some shows, but very, very, I'm not neither here or there. I don't know if that was right or wrong, because I'm a bit confused exactly what the calls were for and against. So if someone knows and they're watching on YouTube, please chuck that in the comments. But, big moments, and maybe something didn't go our way. That would have put us within a couple of points with plenty of time to score again. And we had a little bit of momentum there. So that hurts. But, we end up running out 3-point losers and another honourable loss. 2 weeks in a row, an honourable loss. Really quickly before we go on to the different lines of the teams, when the siren went, give me your emotions and how do you feel about it now, like 24 hours on?
Frustrated. It's just the hurdle to get over to get those games done it's still to be there. It's still to be seen. I don't know what that's going to take to overcome, but once we do, it will be good. You can just tell that once that's gone, that's gone. Like, we know how to kick away against teams when we actually put it together. But I think winning games from losing positions, because the Gold Coast game that we had last year, the close one, that we expected to win that. And even the West Coast game, based on how it went, expected to win that. Richmond game, expected to win that. I think, snatching victory from the jaws of defeat, I think, is something that we don't quite know how to do just yet. And it just felt really 100%. Frustrating, because you know how close it is, but you don't know what it will take to get there.
I guess the biggest moment right at the end was Finbar, right? Let's break this down a little bit, because he takes the mark, a really good contested mark, had to juggle it a bit, but went back and took his sweet damn time when he was walking back. Now, it definitely was over the 30 seconds. I don't think you can really question that. If that's a Geelong or a Collingwood player, do they get called play on there? Probably not. I think that's small team tax, unfortunately, there. But one of the things that I got pointed out to today by a client of mine at the barbershop, and something I didn't really think about, which I think is a really interesting point, is that when Finbar took that mark, he went back on the broadcast. You could see him calming himself down, taking some deep breaths, really trying to focus, right? Something that I think is very disappointing, and once again, I didn't really think this at the time, but the client who was talking to me is a Collingwood fan, and he obviously sees the best quality of football every single week. Not a single one of our leaders, and Jai Simpkin, Parker, went over to Finbar, put his arm around him, said, this is your moment, mate, go back. You got 15 seconds on the clock to start your run up, and took control in that situation. And I think this is a really good point to make, because he was on an island, Finbar. Mm-hmm. He was stressing. You could see he was visibly, oh my God, this is crazy. And not a single one of our leaders went out and had a word to him and tried to calm him down. He was completely by himself, the loneliest place on earth in Marvel Stadium. And I think that is something that we should look at and be like, that is not good enough. And maybe as a whole, that is what this team lacks. I like Simpkin as captain, but it's those sort of moments that he needs to really take control. Parker, I love what he's done from a leadership perspective, but he didn't do that either. The whole team left Finbar on his own to go back, take his time and try and kick it, and there was no direction. And look, I think some people would agree with this. I think some people won't, and that's okay. Let me know your opinion down below. But I don't think that's good enough from our leaders to leave a first gamer completely on an island, to win a game potentially.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't blame Finbar for taking too long. I think he did the right thing when he was trying to calm himself down. But someone's got to go over there as a leader of the football club and take control there.
Yeah, I think with regards to poor Finn, it's like I think that's something that maybe Jai and like Parks maybe don't appreciate as much is we have a bunch of 19-year-old kids that are used to losing. They have never really had an opportunity. And again, I say this because how many times have we won games where we've won from losing positions late? Any of our thrilling games, we've been in front most of the game. North versus Gold Coast, we were in front the entire time. West Coast, it was really Jai Simpkin and Paul Curtis that did it. You know, two of our mid-age players that did it. Richmond, basically in front most of the game. And even some of our previous wins. You know, we've been in front most of the game and it's been a more mature player that's done it. But by and large, these young kids have been involved in loss after loss after loss. They've not had the opportunity to have a game on their shoulders. And I think Parks maybe takes this a little bit. Maybe he took it a little bit for granted. Maybe it didn't occur to him. And I wouldn't blame him. I agree. I think that maybe he should have acknowledged that. But again, you know, I think that's a very normal thing to not realise, hey, I'm part of a team that hasn't really won much footy. Here's a chance to win a game in a situation we've not actually really had much of the chance to do. And even just as North Melbourne, like generally when we win close games, we tend to be winning for most of the game. I can't really think of many situations where we've won with a kick late after being behind for a long period of time. And I think that maybe lacks a little bit. Jai has been part of the club for a bit longer. He was part of a bit of a period where we did win a fair few games, 2018, even 2019, won a fair bit. So he's kind of been in a situation where winning has been normalised. And I think to leave a kid who's 19 years old, never really seen many wins. Did he play against Melbourne?
Like Finbar, are we talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. That was
he
his
didn't.
First
So
game. That was his first game.
Yeah, he hasn't seen a win. So it's just sort of like, you know, you've got to help these kids. You know, they're young kids. They're 18, they're 19, they're 20 years old. They haven't seen many wins in the AFL. And then when they get these sorts of moments, they need leadership support.
And that's what we brought them in for, right? That's what we brought those experienced guys in for. So look, I'm not trying to like crucify Simpkin or Park or anything for that. I just think it's something to point out that's what I would have wanted to see. And I think a lot of other clubs, that's what you would have seen. And it maybe shows why we can be a little bit directionless sometimes on the field. I'm not questioning, especially Parker's leadership this year. I think it's been fantastic, but maybe just as an isolated moment, I think we could have done better in that time and gone back and composed ourselves as a team in a different way and really back Finbar in and put an arm around him. But look, do you take this game as a honourable loss or it's not good enough because we still lost?
A bit of both, to be honest. I would actually go as far as to say, yeah, definitely both. I think that it's like, again, it is an honourable loss. At the end of the day, it was a pretty evenly fought match between two teams. So, yes, like it wasn't really, bar the first quarter, I actually wouldn't even say we left ourselves too much work to do. I actually think that we lost that game in the last quarter.
We definitely had our chances.
We did not, It's not like the Port game where I legitimately think we lost that in the first. This game, I legitimately don't think we lost that game in the first quarter.
Okay,
I think we lost it late because there were clear chances to win the game. I didn't look at the Port game and realistically actually think that we had a chance. There weren't really any realistic chances where we could have gotten our noses in front and won. This one, there were clear chances. That's sort of how I see it. So that's what makes it frustrating. Yes, I do think, you know, for two teams that, you know, North obviously wants to rise up to sort of that, you know, just missing finals range. Essendon, in my opinion, are in that just missing finals range. I think that's a pretty even performance. But again, it's frustrating because there were clear opportunities to win the game, which again, things like the set shot, which were not taken. And I think that's where I sit.
Yeah, I'm a bit confused on it as well because I definitely lean more on the side of I'm sort of over honourable losses now. And I think I'm pretty sick of responding with honourable losses to really bad performances. And it seems to be a cycle that we go through where we get smashed a few weeks in a row, then we come back and lose a few close ones, and then we get smashed again, and then we come back and lose a few close ones. And, we're stuck in that cycle right now. And you're right. Like, hopefully when we get a win, we can snowball a little bit from it and get some confidence, but it just feels like it's a bit far away at the moment. So look, I don't want to, it was a good performance, and, first half was atrocious to watch. Second half, we showed what we can do a little bit more. And I think we should have probably won that at the end, especially with the momentum we had in the second half. But, I maybe differ a little bit where I do think the first quarters for us are just killing us. And, if you give yourself a hole that deep to dig yourself out of, a team like us just isn't going to do it. So Clarkson said that was a focus as well for them. So look, it's unfortunate. I've been pretty open on this podcast about, I'm not taking a step back from footy. Like, I'm not going to watch it, but I need to chill out a little bit more, and I need to just let this happen, and not just not let football rule my life for a little bit while this is happening. And I definitely felt like I was very frustrated after the game. I went away, I relaxed, and then I went and did something else. We'll go next week against the Lions. I mean, that's probably not very winnable, but I'm looking at that Richmond game like, that's do or die for our season. If we don't win that Richmond game, it's season done. And if we do, we can go on and potentially hit that 6-win mark, even though I think that's potentially the lowest bar we set. But look, let's look at a few of the different players on the different lines of the team. We'll start with the forward line. We've talked about Finbar a little bit, so we won't cover that much more. I think a really exciting debut. Really want to see him get a run of games now. Just please, can we work on that run up and the kick? Because, when it was him with imagine if Larky had that ball, took it, like anyone else taking that mark, but poor Finbar, I really liked him. I want him to play next week, and I hope he can give us some more fun moments. But some other players in that forward line to talk about. Nick Larky had his kicking boots on a little bit more than he did the week before. I wouldn't say really dominated the game. I think his game overall was better last week, but his kicking was bad. But I think his kicking was better this game, but his game overall wasn't quite as good. How did you see Larky's game? It was sort of like a standard Larky performance. Maybe could have kicked another one, but I don't know. I'm not screaming from the rooftops about this Larky game, but do you have similar thoughts on that?
Oh, I thought that Ben Mackay had the most effective one disposal game up until halftime.
He loves that, doesn't he?
Yeah, again, Larky is the kind of player, and actually it's one of the reasons why I don't really criticise him too much. Bar the Sydney game, really, and maybe the Carlton game, he always finds a way to score a couple of goals. I don't know how he does it. He can be one of the most ineffective players in the game, and you will not notice him, but he'll have 3 goals. He'll have 2 goals. He'll never just have one score. He'll always get a couple. And that's the thing I think I really like about him, is he always finds a way, and I think that's actually testament. That man bleeds blue and white.
The passion he showed, like the yelling at the crowd and the fist pumping and stuff when he kicked his second.
Oh yeah,
I love it, man. I love Nick Larky so much.
It's like when a player barracks for the team they play for
sure, 100%.
Yeah, like that man is as North Melbourne as it comes. And I think I will always die on this hill. I think he actually should have been the captain. Of the club.
I'm not completely against that as well. Like, I backed Simpkin at the time, but definitely the year before, I was talking about maybe Larky could be a potential captain, because I don't think he'll be afraid to stand up in a big moment like that. And I think he'll say it how it is a little bit as well. So yeah, look, I don't
Simpkin's the one to take us up the ladder. Larky's the one to take us all the way there. I think eventually that for me is the natural progression. And then obviously, at some point Sheasel goes and does it. But that being said, I do think it is testament to his work rate, because he does it because he cares. And even when a game is done, I still remember he kicks two of the most meaningless goals against Sydney.
Yes.
But you don't score those 2-0 goals without working hard. And
one of them is from the boundary too.
Yeah, exactly. For him, the game is never, ever, ever done. And I think, yes, it was maybe not his most effective game, but again, in a 9-goal game, kicking 2 is always going to be.
It's big. That's a great point, actually. Yeah,
kicking 2 goals in a 9-goal game, considering the level of pressure and even skill level in terms of forward 50 entry for both teams, I think that's actually a very good result for him. And I don't think games are going to realistically be won off his boot, but he's the one that keeps us in. He's the one that keeps us in games. That third quarter was him.
For sure.
That was, and again, I think 2 of those 4 goals were from him in that quarter. So
I think so, yeah.
I think that's the thing I think we really need to be mindful of. Yes, we may criticise Nick Larkey, but think about when he gets those goals. He's never going to win a game off his own boot. That's for the other players, I think, to step up. He's doing his part. You don't get to second in the Coleman by being a terrible player, but you don't win games by, pushing for the Coleman.
Yeah, for sure. That's right. I mean, look, all he can do is kick goals though for us. That's his job. He does that. He does that very, very well. Maybe I'm just waiting for that Nick Larkey 5-goal game, which, if we could deliver the ball to him, to be fair, he could probably do it, but we can't. So I blame the midfield more for that. Where do you sit on Jacob Constanti right now?
I think he's got a lot to offer. I really like him. I think he's very rough and I think he needs some polish.
Because the last few weeks, he's not really tackling, not laying many tackles, not really getting on the scoreboard.
Exactly.
I just looked at his tackles here, 2 tackles for the game, 5 touches, 1 behind, 60% disposal efficiency, 2 contested possessions and stuff. I like what he can bring, but I think we need to also set some standards and be like, is that producing enough? He offers something very different, but I don't know at the moment. I feel like last week I said I want him to stay in that team, and I think he provides a lot of pressure. But I think this game for me, he had his opportunity to kick a goal in the first, which would have really helped our first quarter out, and he couldn't do that. And he didn't really, I know he got a free kick late, but I mean, any player who was standing in that position would have got it. I don't know. I've got some questions, and I think I like what he can. I like his pressure. I like his energy. And if he was getting on the scoreboard, I would be saying lock, absolutely. But I don't know. I think the only reason he might be in the team at the moment is because there's no one else to bring in. I mean, I know Robert Hansen is there and just signed a new deal, which is great, but I don't know. I'm not sure where I exactly stand on Constanti at the moment. I like his energy and I like the type of player he is, but we don't want a Kane Turner. We need you to get on the scoreboard. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So,
don't break my heart on Kane Turner.
I'm so sorry.
I do absolutely know what you mean. He's, I fear at the moment he's a player that doesn't do well when we're not winning. I feel like I'm worried.
Yeah, he's like when we're up and about, he's going to be a good player. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Almost like a Ginnivan for Hawthorn.
Yeah, that's what I sort of worry about him. I think he definitely, he's definitely not maxed out. We can get so much out of him. Again, I do think for the time being, until he really starts to become more of just a consistent, reliable player, he's going to be one of those ones that really turns it up when the whole team turns up. And I really fear that too much of our team is like that at the moment. So, but I do think he's probably the biggest example of that, alongside maybe like a Cameron Zurhaar, though I do think Zurhaar lately has kind of picked it up a little bit. But I think Constanti definitely is one of those players that, when we're not doing as well, or if people aren't finding a way to get the footy to him, I don't think he sort of generates chances and generates opportunities. Like, again, his low tackle count. He's one of those players you'd expect to really make tackles, win free kicks, and really, set the footy up for a score himself or a kick to the top of the goal square.
Because for the game, like I think we killed him in the forward 50 tackles. Let me just find tackles in the forward 50, 13-4. So someone's tackling down there, but it wasn't Constanti. But look, there's not many players that kick in the door down. Geordie Payne, I mean, have we seen heaps from him in the twos? I haven't watched the replay of the twos today. I'll go and watch that after. But, we could maybe give him a crack, but I'm not too sure. Cooper Harvey doesn't feel like he's there. And then everyone else is sort of that medium-sized forward, which isn't the same sort of role. And Constanti does offer something unique. So we'll see. Let's rattle through a few of these players quickly. Darling, you sort of agree it's probably time for a couple of weeks rest and maybe try and bring him back in a few weeks?
I agree. Yeah. I think he's there for a very specific role, and I don't think that role's really serviced if he doesn't have weeks. I think he needs some time on the bench. I also think it's an opportunity again for players like Hardeman for the most to really, really stick up. I do think that's going to be a good opportunity just to sort of really cycle some players through and then bring him in, for those real, I think he's sort of like, he's a player we need to bring in for like a Richmond game.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maybe just a week. I mean, Brisbane, you're really going to trek him down to Tassie to go and get done by the Lions.
I don't think he serves a purpose there. I really don't think he serves a purpose for games against like a Geelong or a Brisbane or a Collingwood. I don't think it benefits the club. I think it's more benefited for, again, players like Jai and Parks to stand up and teach these guys, these young players, in those games against very good opposition. Watch and learn and figure it out, because these are the best in the competition, because if you can do it there, you can do it against anyone. And I think maybe that's a little bit missing.
Yeah, for sure. 1 mark for the game, 5 touches, 40% disposal efficiency. So, I think now Finbar's come on. Maybe you can throw a Teakle in there if you want to keep it a little bit taller. So, yeah, maybe a week for him. Cam Zurhaar, a good game from Cam. I think we've got to, his form maybe hasn't been as electric at the start of the year, but he's definitely built himself back up. 2 goals, 1, only 9 touches. But, 2 goals from 9 touches, that's sort of what you want him there for.
Yeah.
I think we have to get over, and me included, thinking he's ever going to go into the midfield. I don't think he's ever going to go in there if he's not going in there in the last couple of years. It's just not going to happen. So, a decent game from him. And then other than that, the only one we can really talk about is Dersma, but he's sort of playing wing half forward. He comes up he only has big moments, Dersma. Yeah. He has these big moments, and other than that, he's not really in the game heaps. I'll just try and look up. Sorry, I'm looking down. For those watching it on YouTube here, I'm just looking up his stats. So once again, 9 touches, 1 goal, 2. So he could have had. He missed one. He missed a set shot, I think, which was gettable. That's right at the end of the first, and then he hacked one out of a pack or something right in front of goal and missed as well, which you can excuse him for that. So at least should have had 2. I think he's doing enough scoreboard pressure or threatening at the moment to stay in the team, and obviously that big moment at the end was one of the moments of the game. So I like what I'm seeing from him. I just they've got to commit to putting him on the wing and letting him be in the middle, or getting him forwards, and he's sort of got to nail one of those roles. If he just floats in between both, and 9 touches for a game, I don't know. I'd like a little bit more from him, but I think I love his big moment ability, and that's the stuff you can't teach. That's the stuff you have instinctually. So if they can really get him around the ball, get him clunking those marks, maybe playing more forward and in the forward line, because he can be so dynamic, that's where I think would be best for him. But where do you see Zane as a player? Would you rather him in the forward line, or maybe more that wing and playing around the middle a bit more?
I don't know. I think for the time being, I do like him on the wing. I actually think, again, he was beneficial on the wing, and I think he's got some good composure. I actually think having someone on the wing with that composure and the ability to enter forward 50, whether it be to score or perhaps even find options, I think it's going to only be beneficial, because that is a weak part of our game, and he seems to do it probably better than some of our players. And I think that's only going to be a good thing for the time being. Once our midfield starts to get better, we know he can kick goals. But I think at the moment, his role is much, much better served, giving at least somewhat better entries. I don't think, again, maybe he's elite at it, or, particularly amazing at it, but considering the service that, Suv has gotten sometimes, overweighted kicks, absolutely not lowering the eyes and looking for options, just the long bomb, overshooting Larky and going straight to the fullback, he doesn't do it as much, and I think that's better. It's not perfect, but don't let perfect get in the way of good.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. Dersma had a moment as well. He was sort of on the wing or towards the back flank, where they did sort of have him around the stoppages, and he had so much time and space and ended up hacking that ball out of bounds on the full as well. So I just don't think he's as effective down the ground. And I know he's only played a few games. He hasn't even played 10 games his career, but I think he's so much more effective leading towards the ball and around that forward 50. So I wouldn't mind seeing him play a little bit more in there, but it is also a very stacked position, I guess.
Hey, Josh. Hey, Marnie. Jen here. Oh, God, that hurt. The first quarter killed us again. When will we ever win one of these close games? Please just win one. The footy gods hate us. And I still can't get over PC is not playing. 3 weeks for a tackle. That is an absolute joke. It's the worst decision ever. Anyways, on to next week. Go Roos.
That's not a good honourable loss. That's heartbreaking. What a terrible first half that we had. We cost ourselves another game. We cannot accept this anymore.
Finbar, you were amazing. Head up, mate. This team needs to cut it out with the honourable losses. That was our shot, and we blew it.
Another injury-depleted side North Melbourne cannot beat. I'm losing words to describe how annoyed and frustrated I am. North Melbourne keep finding new lows.
Sherry and Parker are absolute behemoths of our team. They bleed and barrage through thick and thin, royal blue and white. Build these guys a statue. I want this to categorically go down in North Melbourne history that all players, anyone, full stop to do with North Melbourne, are periodically banned from doing a shush to the crowd. Albeit it was our own fans, by the way. No more of that.
Let's go to some of the midfielders then. Let's start with the wing. Bailey Scott. I want to start here. We've got other people to talk about, but Bailey Scott was the sub, got subbed on when Archer got injured. So we got a half of football, just over a half of football. He has ended the game, I believe, with 3 touches. And you just, for a player who, Jackson Archer got 1 touch for the game, but he got injured, obviously. 3 touches, 1 kick, 2 handballs for the game. He's got to get dropped. I mean, I don't think he should have been back in the side because the VFL didn't play and therefore maybe didn't warrant him getting selected after getting dropped for similar reasons. But you can't have a game like that. It's Tucker-esque levels from last week. Do you know what I mean? How do you feel about Bailey Scott at the moment?
Yeah, it was really again, I always call him a reliable player, but that was far from it. That was just, you expect
what's
so
happened
much.
to him though, this season for him has been a shocker, an absolute shocker. And it's not trying to bash him at all. I never want to do it with any players. We got to call it how it is here. And, from top 3 in our best and fairest, it felt like year on year on year, he's gone from that to now really being on the outers and he's getting single-digit possession games when he was getting 20 plus every single week. What's happened to him?
Yeah, I don't know. It's really weird. I just find he used to be such a good runner, good mover, just a real engine room type player, but he's just not really getting himself into positions where he can do that. And he just kind of looks a little bit lost at sea.
Yeah. There was a moment for me where Essendon won the ball. They sort of ran away from their goal and one of their players turned and Bailey Scott's effort he was just trotting along behind him. He could have put pressure on a pressure act. He could have tackled or anything like that. And he just did not. There was no effort and there was no intent for the man there. He gave up before he even started trying. I can't pinpoint exactly the moment, but I remember watching it. I wrote it down in my notes straight away and saying Bailey Scott's effort to attack the ball and do the defensive stuff is non-existent, even a pressure act. And that's the difference between maybe the guy we'll go to next, between maybe what Dylan Stephens is doing at the moment compared to what Bailey Scott has dished up this year so far, where Dylan Stephens has come back and been much better in the contest, much better as a physical footballer and not dwindling in contest as much. And Bailey Scott seems to have, it's almost like they've swapped talent, like in Space Jam, to be honest. So I don't really understand what's going on with Bailey Scott, but Bailey Scott needs a run in the 2s. And he's got to earn his spot back into this team because at the moment he's absolutely not justifying it. Let's go to Stephens then, my man, because I've been backing this guy for a while and this was definitely, in Marnie Cohen's words, not mine, a Dylan Stephens legacy game. I thought he was fantastic. And look, I've been bashing the door down with him a little bit. I'm not saying he's the greatest player in the world, but I think the things he's doing compared to the criticism he gets is far apart. And I think people have just made up their minds on him from last year. I think he's been pretty good this year. I don't think he's ever really had a droppable game. And that him in the second half and especially the third quarter, him and LDU for me personally were the 2 players on the ground that brought us back into that game. He was everything between half back and half forward. He was connecting. His disposal was good. He was around the football. He was there when you needed him. I was really, really impressed with his game and I hope that some fans start to maybe change their minds on him a little bit.
I agree. I think he's definitely I actually think the improvement has absolutely been noticeable. I actually would say I've seen him get a little bit better every week. Yep. And he's kind of gotten a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. I've just noticed him do a lot more and a bit better around, almost kind of in the same way as I see maybe Darcy Tucker declining. I've actually seen someone like Dylan Stephens improving. And I think that was really pleasing to see. And I think, you know, if he can really find his spot in the team like this, I think that's going to be fantastic. I genuinely could not have been any happier with his individual performance last night. Yeah.
Some of the stats, I mean, 25 touches, 15 kicks, 10 handballs, but 8 marks, which I think is really, really impressive. 25 touches, 80% disposal efficiency.
I was just about to say that. 80% is good. That's great.
Which is fantastic. And I just think, what's his meters gained here as well? Would have been high, 433 meters gained. I'm just really impressed with him. 5 intercept possessions as well. 4 rebound 50s, which was our equal highest with Caleb Daniel, O'Sullivan and Sheasel. Great, a fantastic game from him. And yes, I back him. I don't know why I back him, but I just don't maybe see him as negative as other people on him. I know maybe sometimes I've talked him up a little bit too much, but this is what I've felt like he's been able to do, and he's been on the brink of doing this for a few games now, and really, really impressed with Dylan Stephens. So please just give him a chance. He's been really, really good since he's come into the team and got his spot back, and he's clean with the ball. I said before, McKercher, Sheasel, they're 2 of our best ball users. You can maybe throw O'Sullivan in there, who's a fantastic ball user. Other than that, he's probably the next best at the club for my mind.
I also do want to briefly chat about Sheasel as well. I think that was really pleasing to see. I thought that he
do you like the move back to halfback then?
I think I did for the time being. I think we're conceding less. I mean, my sample size is 1, but I think until our defense gets their act together, having those good users of the footy, moving the footy out of halfback, I think is only going to be a good thing. And compared to where we were previously when Sheasel was moving off halfback, that was a bit better. So I think, yes, our defense looks very disorganized, but it looks like a much better outfit with him there, at least for now. Again,
it's more composed though, isn't it?
Yeah. In the same way I think that Dersma eventually belongs in the forward line, I also think that Sheasel belongs in the midfield, but I don't think our team is ready to have them in those positions because of what we lack in those areas.
Yeah, for sure. I think she's had the most meters gained, I think, for 591, which was fantastic. I mean, equal rebound 50s for the game. I agree. I think we look more stable, sort of off half back coming into the midfield with Daniel looked better, which we'll get onto in a second when we do the defense. But, you know, Stephens, Daniel, Hardiman and Sheasel seem to be the 4 people that are trusted to run that ball off half back and progress it through the midfield. And I think it's looked better with those 2 down there. You can throw Hardiman, I think, had a few moments like that, but he does the gritty defensive stuff too. So, I think Sheasel is looking a little bit better off half back, maybe still lacking a bit of that influence he had at the start of his career when he was doing it, you know, in his first few games. But I think he'll absolutely get back there, and he's slowly building his form. Would you say he's stat padding, Rashaan, or do you think he's just a full blown superstar?
Oh, I just think he's a full-blown superstar. I don't think stat padding is the right way to put it.
Cop that, Kane Corns. You heard it here first from North Melbourne, close to a flag.
Me,
That's a rubbish take too. Yeah, next question. Yeah. Like Clark at a press conference. Next question. Yeah. Because to point out that Sheasel might be just getting stats for the sake of stats and not doing the things for the team. He's the vice captain. Like, some of the dumbest commentary. I'm going to make a video on this over the weekend as well. So we might not dive into Kane Corns and the week it was at North Melbourne just yet. So there's going to be a video coming about that. But look, there's a lot to dive into there. Let's talk about a few other midfielders. LDU, the Jekyll and Hyde. First half was the LDU of the last 2 games. The second half was much more towards the LDU that we have seen. Now, maybe not quite as game-breaking, but his disposal was so much cleaner in that second half. And I think him and Stevens were really the reason why we ended up being a lot competitive and getting back into that game. Like, imagine if he can just do it for 4 quarters. I still don't get the bombing it long all the time. And what you said before was correct, where he just takes that 1 second too long to make a decision sometimes and gets caught holding the ball or, doesn't dispose of it correctly. But credit where credit's due. I mean, 29 touches, only had 9 kicks, 19 handballs, 6 tackles for the game. Let me have a look at his clearances. I think he would have been pretty high. So it's only 6 clearances, but it was our second highest. Jerry had 10. But I'm really happy that he had that second half to drag us back into the game. And I hope when they do the review of the game, Clarko credits LDU with being that guy to drag us back. And hopefully that gives him the confidence to be the player that we know he can be.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I hope so. It's definitely, it's definitely something that I think, was lacking and absolutely was lacking in that first half. But yeah, second half, absolutely, phenomenal. Really, really good to see. And hopefully we get more of that soon.
Yeah, Colby McKercher, I think he was good in this game, progressive with the ball, kicked a fantastic goal, broke away. Maybe isn't racking up the touches like he did last year, but he seems to be playing a very different role. A good Colby game, nothing wrong with that. I don't think there's really much to harp on about there. Will Phillips, let's talk about Will Phillips. I liked his game, but it is the most Will Phillips game ever, where he's just never, I don't think he's ever going to be a good offensive side of the ball player. I think he's just going to be there. I'm not saying he's a bad disposer or anything like that, but I really liked the toughness, the grittiness, the tackling that he was putting up in that midfield. 9 tackles along with Powell for the game. So good on Powell for doing that. I really liked what Phillips added to this midfield, and it's so hard to find a place for him in the midfield when Wardlaw comes back. But I think he added something we didn't have and that we didn't seem to just bleed from stoppage as much.
Yeah, I think he, I just think he's a very composed mover of the footy. I just think he is, again, so reliable and we just don't use him as nearly as much as we should. So, I just like to see him much, much more than what we usually do.
Yeah. And Tom Powell, I mean, good stats for this game. I maybe wouldn't have thought just from watching the game that he racked up the touches and all the stuff, like 9 tackles and equal high clearances for the game. So, or with the midfielders, Jerry got 10, but we'll talk about that in a sec. But I don't know. Powell's almost like LDU. I've said this a lot. They seem like very similar players. I think they offer very similar things, but Powell maybe doesn't quite have the potential of an LDU. I've been critical on Powell this year, and I think rightly so. This was a decent game from him, but I would like maybe for him, like we've been calling with LDU, to have maybe moments where he breaks the game open a little bit more. But you can't question his contested work, plenty of contested possessions, and did a lot of the dirty stuff in this game. I just don't maybe think he drives the team forward enough with what I've seen, because in the preseason, his first couple of steps, he was bounding away from people and all that sort of stuff. And he's maybe just not really there this year. But, maybe I'm just a little bit down on Powell. Stats-wise, looks very, very good. So I don't know. I really like what he did in that game. And looking at the stats, I definitely went back and thought about it a little bit more. How have you seen Powell this year? Do you sort of agree with me on that, or you think I'm being harsh?
No, I do agree. I think, just want more. I just want more.
And that's it. And this is what I've been saying. I'm not criticizing Powell, but I just know he's got more of a burst and more of a more explosion in him. And I want to see it. I want to see that, because you can be like that LDU type of game and just explode a little bit more. He's doing the fundamentals he's got. The kicking is still a little bit of a worry. Him and Dylan Stevens broke the game open at one point, and Stevens handballs off to Powell. He just had to deliver, and he ended up kicking out of bounds on the full, which was a bit of a crucial point in the game, to be honest, as well. So I wasn't a fan of that, but everything else around from that, the fundamentals are there. The kicking needs to improve a touch, but just burst out of a pack, Tom. Do it, please, because you can do it and you can be so good. So it's a little bit frustrating. But, a solid game from him, numbers-wise, very good. So hopefully he can have that, almost like that Demons game, which I saw him just take the game by storm and by the scruff of the neck and be a fantastic player. So, look, hopefully he can do that next game. One more before we go to the defense. Tristan Xerri, probably the best player on the ground, did give his old mentor Goldie a bit of a bath, gave our mids first use every single time. I really wish we made more of that. What did you think about Big X's game?
It was a real Star Wars type episode 4 appearance, I think. I mean, an old man going up against a man in a black helmet. I mean, where have we seen that before? Master and Apprentice.
Who's the father now?
Yeah, it's. I think it was really good to see. I actually genuinely think it actually showed how, and he's a one-man army sometimes, Sherry, which again can be a bit of a fault of our midfield. He can rove his own hit-outs and win his own clearances so often. But again, I think he is just a very good, he is very good. You can tell he's learned under Goldie. He knows how to ruck like Goldie, and he's also added his own contested football flair, which Goldie maybe lacked. Goldie was more of a contested mark kind of player, but like I said, he didn't win those clearances on his own in the way that Jerry did.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 25 touches for the game. Every tackle he lays is just bone crunching. So, I think he was probably the best player on the ground on the night. So really good to see him back in form last week and this week after looking a little bit down from those injuries that he copped in the Adelaide game. He looked a little bit flat in those games leading up to maybe the Power game. So good to see him back at his dominant best. Let's chat about the midfield. Let's chat about the defense, and then we can do the votes and wrap it up. Callum Dawson, I don't think this was a great game from Callum Dawson. No. Definitely a lot of clumsy moments, lagging behind the lead. It is absolutely on the midfielders as well, especially the first half, for letting the ball go through the middle. And I really like what Callum did the week before. Just seemed a little bit out of his depth this week. And I think I'm still on the train of maybe getting Core back in over a Dawson. I like how our defense looks with the 2 key defenders instead of the 3 key defenders. But what did you think of Callum Dawson's game, and how have you seen our structure as a defense since we've gone back to the 2 keys?
It wasn't his best game. I do think our defense has looked a little bit better. It hasn't looked fantastic, but I do think it has definitely looked better. I do think Aiden Core complements the current back 6 that we have a lot more. I think he's I think he's a steady set of hands and a good leader in that back line. And I think sometimes we do, while the defense is a little bit better, I do think we look a bit rudderless sometimes.
We look lost a lot,
even though they don't score as much when we do have this sort of back line, I do find that they just seem very silly goals. They seem like very silly goals that we shouldn't
avoidable goals as well. Some of the times I'm not blaming Callum for everything. Like our midfield game, one of the LDU turnovers ended up with a 3-on-1, Callum Dawson in the back line. And for some reason, Charlie Comben, and I love the bloke, and I don't think he's done much wrong, but he gets dragged up the ground a lot, and it really isolates Callan one-on-one. And then when we turn the ball over, the Bombers are almost ready to run against the play because they know that we were going to turn the ball over, and that isolated him a lot. But yeah, I think he ran into Peter Wright's ribs at one point in the game, which Peter Wright didn't really like. And it was a bit clumsy from him because, there was another player there to spoil and that sort of stuff. He just, he looked like he was a little bit out of his depth in this one. I really wonder if they'll go with Core again or if they'll keep him in the side. I like Callan. I think he competes really, really well, and I liked his game last week against the Power. But yeah, I don't know. I maybe wasn't stoked on his performance. Charlie Comben as well. I think he's done okay playing more one-on-one, not intercepting quite as much. Only took 3 marks for the game, but didn't really do much wrong, and 91% disposal efficiency off 12 touches, which I think his kicking looks to be improved since he made those howlers, especially against Carlton. I like what he's sort of doing down there. So there's not really much to talk about with Chom. I just want to, say I think that the 2 key defenders is working well, but maybe give Core a crack. I think maybe he's got a little bit more to offer than Dawson. But where is Will Dawson as well? That's the one thing I don't understand. From all reports, I heard he had a cracker of a game in the VFL today as well. So maybe we can see him soon. I think this was Caleb Daniels' not return to form game, but he looked a lot more comfortable. And I think almost what you were talking about with before, the players we've got off halfback to dispose are in better form and are more reliable instead of the chaos ball that was coming out of our back line originally. So how did you see his game today with Caleb Daniel? His 200th game, so happy 200 for him, but much better. Against the Bombers, I felt much more composed and took a few risky kicks and hit them and did open the game up a little bit.
That's what I want to see from Caleb. He's a really like high risk, high reward kind of player. And I think he still does that. And when he's out of form, but we get punished so much more for it. And I think he's a lot more visible when he does those sorts of things. So I do think, yeah, you're right. He, he's hitting those high risk kicks a lot better. He's, again, composed when he does it and he moves the footy quite nicely. It was really refreshing just to see him back to doing that. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Hardiman, a really solid game. Hopefully he can stay in the side and get more time. Really solid. I think he showed a little bit of ability bounding off halfback and using his his left foot to really drive the ball forward as well. And that's something I liked, obviously, to combine with his defensive qualities as well. So I really liked Hardiman's game. Nothing to write home about, but it's good. Finn O'Sullivan, sort of playing maybe more up the wing and halfback in this game, but I'm waiting for a little bit of Finn O'Sullivan. Let's have a look at the number 2 pick sort of stuff going on. He's been solid. He's never done anything really that wrong, but are you sort of waiting for him to get a rising star nom or really break the game open a bit more?
Oh yeah, I don't think he's done anything to really get a rising star. I want him to, and I think
I want to see that number 2 talent pick talent on display though, and I think he's been very solid, very fundamental, strong in contest and clean. But almost like we're saying with Powell, show us, mate, break the game open. I hope it's coming soon because I would like him even in conversation for rising star. What do you think?
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
All right. Who else in the back line? I mean, look, McDonald, it is what it is. We've actually got a question really quickly, and maybe we can answer this before we finish it up. We've got a bunch of voice messages that we've obviously previously played, but Brighton Isles has asked us a question where it was, how do we fix this defense, or how do we, and we've been better at this recently, but what is something you think that we can really get to bring in and get a bit of structure in this defense? Because we have looked chaotic, and yes, we limited the Bombers 65 points, but is there any changes that you will want to see to answer his question about what structurally can we change in that defense to maybe make us better? Because Jackson Archer going out is going to hurt that. Absolutely. I don't really know who we bring back in for him. Hopefully it's not Tucker. But what do you think structurally we can do down in the back line to fix anything? Or do you think we're on the right path?
Yeah, I think we're on the right path. It's a hard one. I don't know.
Yeah, because I don't know. I think, how do I describe it? I think we've found a much better balance in that back line with defensive players who can also rebound the ball. We haven't got just pure attackers off the half back line now, which can't defend. I think it really sucks about Archer, and he's going to be out for probably like 3 months or something like that with that high grade hamstring strain. But I think we found a much better balance in defense with Hardiman down there and Daniel sort of having more defenders around him to sort of run off half back. And you can rely on Sheasel. Stevens is in better form and he seems to push down and be that sort of wing half back sort of guy. I think we found a better structure. And honestly, to answer his question, I feel like we've already found that structure. Maybe giving Core another shot over a Dawson and finding another defensive player to come in for Jackson Archer, I think can keep what we've been doing the last couple of weeks. I think we've sort of found the structure. I think we've actually changed that a lot. Hopefully that answers his question. But yeah, I don't know. That would be my opinion. Do you differ on that at all?
No, I think you're pretty spot on there.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's go to Sean at the Club Champ moment of the game, and then we can wrap it up. The 3 votes this week. I've got the 3 votes and the 2 votes. I'm unsure on the 1 vote, and this is what I need you to help me out with.
Yep.
3 votes for me, Tristan Sherry. I think he was the most dominant player on the ground. He gave the mids first use. I think that is what it is. 2 votes has to go to Dylan Stevens for me. Probably the best game he's played for North Melbourne. And him and LDU were the reason that we got back into that game. I would maybe consider LDU for 1 vote for his second half, but I'm not too sure. I would maybe consider Simpkin. Simpkin's actually someone I wanted to touch on really quickly because we didn't really talk about him much in the game. I'll just spend 30 seconds on this. I think he's better forward. He can pinch hit in the midfield. His quality in front of goal, and that was the best Simpkin game for a while. He's been butchering that footy in very crucial moments in the last few weeks. That was his best game for a month and a half, in my opinion. I think he needs to play a lot more forward. Maybe if Constanti did have a spell, Simpkin can play that role as a tackler. We know he's hard at the ball. When he can finish, he can find the goals. Maybe that's how we keep Wilfil in the middle as well. Just want to shout out Simpkin and say I think forward pocket is his better position than the midfield. I like Simpkin's game. Do you think potentially Simpkin could get a vote? The only other one I've got here is Finbar. Do we give Finbar a vote for his first game?
I'd like to, but I do.
Or do you want to throw someone else in the ring?
Nah, I think LDU off his first half, I don't think deserves a vote.
That's the only reason why I couldn't slip him into that.
Yeah. I do think Simpkin. Half of it's a vibes pick. Half of it, I just feel like I feel like he was just a little bit more consistent throughout the day. Sure, again, he could have shown that leadership, but that could have been the difference between 2 and 3, in my opinion.
For sure.
And maybe a 1 and a 2. So I think definitely 1 vote. I think he did enough for that. I don't think it's enough for any more.
Yeah, okay. I think that's fair. Jerry, 3. Dylan Stevens 2, Simpkin 1. I was sort of leaning towards Simpkin as well, but I wanted to throw those other guys. Honourable mention to Finbar, of course, but Finbar might finish in the golden helmet moment of the game. I've got 3 moments of the game for you. I want you to pick your favourite one. Was it Finbar's goal? Was it Dersma's goal? Or was it Cam Zerha's goal?
Oh, either Dersma or Zerha, in my opinion.
You're taking out Finbar. No.
Finbar, I think, was a real feel-good moment. In terms of the context
of the game. Context of the game, but...
Context of the game, Dersma. In terms of just pure vibes, I'd actually say Finbar.
Vibes was Finbar for sure.
Yeah. So
Zerha's was good, though. It was really good.
Yeah, Zerha. Yeah, they were some. We didn't kick many goals, but that was
they were great goals. I'll tell you what, great goals. I might back Dersma on this. I love Finbar's, of course, but Dersma's was in such a massive moment, and it was a tight angle on the run as well. I might go Dersma, but it's so harsh. There were 3 crackers.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Dersma. Considering the distance as well, I think that's also fair too.
Okay. All right. Well, look. We can wrap it up there. Thank you for listening, everybody. Please, if you're watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button, like the video, give us a comment down below. Chime in with your opinions and all the stuff we've talked about as well. We try to cover as much as we can. We also try and keep it short. So it's a tough battle, the hardest battle in the world to find. But Rashaan, thank you for coming on. You do great stuff with Closer to a Flag. Please go over to their page. If you're listening to Further North and don't already follow Closer to a Flag, I'd be shocked, to be honest. But if you're not around those boys already, please get around it. Feel free to plug anything you want, mate, or chat about the page or talk about some stuff if you want to.
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously not too many home games coming up in Melbourne soon. We'll be doing a bit of Bay 29 for that, of course. Next one will be for the Collingwood game. And then after the bye, I will be going to Perth for 2 weeks.
So I'm so jealous of that too.
So I'll be following the team for the game in Bunbury and also over at Optus Stadium. So if you guys find yourself in WA, or if there are any WA listeners, please come say good day to me. I don't know where the hell I'll be, but I'll post a photo on North Close to a Flag. Really keen to see what this new Perth experiment looks like once we say goodbye to Tassie. So yeah, Bay 29 for the Melbourne home games, Perth obviously, and maybe we'll drop down to Tassie for one last time and say goodbye.
Well, look, I'm going to the Richmond game in Tassie, mate. So if you've got the weekend off and you want some free accommodation, you just let me know, all right? I'll sort you out with a few of the connections down there. All right, guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back soon. I'm going to release a video on the week that North Melbourne had, and then we're going to be back and preview the Brisbane game, which is absolutely terrifying. But thank you for sticking around. I love you guys. Thank you so much for sticking with us all through this awful time of being a North Melbourne fan. Rashaan, we'll talk to you again soon in a month's time, and thank you very much, mate.
Yes, thank you.